bring it up.
I was just saying that around this time, actually a little bit prior to this, was the Second
Yeah.
Great Awakening in the U.S.
In America, yeah.
Mormonism, Joseph Smith, who was a young man, only probably 15 or so, when
Yeah.
he had started hearing voices quite similar to what
Yeah.
Hong's experienced.
Yeah, but he didn't create a regime and killed a lot of people, right? So at least that's a good thing. Yeah, but so yeah, it's in some sense it's the same thing, because think about it. How did he get the booklet? It's basically American missionaries. So if you spread it around America, you also spread Christianity around the world. And so Hong then went back and he realized that he is now the cult leader of thousands of peasants in Guangxi, mainly peasants and also other Hakka, also Hakka people who went to Guangxi. Because if you're Hakka, you just arrived, let's say 200-300 years ago, like from the 1840s, you weren't given land. So you had all these like coal miners in the mountains, were basically living just slightly above survival line. And so you huge like thousands of peasants that is waiting to be to find what they call the heaven on earth. And then one very big character then came up. What happened was Feng was then arrested. Feng, the chief organizer in the beginning, was arrested. And when he was arrested, Hong tried to talk sense to the Qing officials to ask to pardon him for religious freedom. Then one of the top coal miner, there was a top coal miner that like was kind of leader of the pack of the coal miners within the church. It's a guy called Yang, and he's the second Yang Xiuqing. Yang. He was a lot smarter. What he did was he got money from the other coal miners and he bribed the official, and that's how Feng got back. But Yang, when there was any danger, because when Feng was arrested, he was this Yang guy. The whole church was actually collapsing, because Hong left as well. So what Yang did was, in order to stabilize the whole thing, he went on like a Whoopi Goldberg ghost moment, where God reincarnated in him, and it was speaking, "Don't worry, it will all be fine." And who is this Yang guy? Yang guy is basically the head of all the miners, and in those areas, very remote areas, like mountainous remote areas in China, there's a lot of superstition. One of it, this is called Wenmi, to ask rice, and this is like what Whoopi Goldberg did in Ghost. So let's say, for example, you have a deceased family member, and then they'll be like, and they'll go in and then they'll ask, like they have that in the States as well, right? So I'm fine, or like remember to pay the guy more because he's really helping me to talk to you, that kind of stuff. And so he's done that all the time. And when you do that, you become the natural leader because everybody comes to you, and not only that, you know everything about everybody within the families. And so he just basically did so what I'm saying is, with this Taiping rebellions, they talk about God, but then there's a lot of local Chinese folklore stuff. So this created a problem, because if Hong is the second son of God, Yang is now a speaker of God. So, and this relationship is going to lead to something very interesting later on. And so at this point, the revolution is brewing. You've got thousands upon thousands of people following them. And then when they follow them, they promise one thing, which is, we will fight. And when they fight, who are the evil ones? The Qing are the evil ones. The Manchurians are the evil ones. We kill all the evil ones, and then we'll bring you to heaven on earth, which is Nanjing. So because at that point in time, Nanjing, at that point in time, the most economically established places around here, like Shanghai area. Oh, actually, now too. Yeah.
Was Nanjing the capital then?
No, Beijing was the capital. So Beijing is here. Beijing is here. China today would be size like this. So you could. So Xinjiang, Tibet, Hong Kong, Guangzhou, Beijing, yeah, Mongolia, Russia, yeah. At that point in time, this was all Chinese China too. Yeah. So, and then there were other people that followed. I have to keep on writing the names. Yang is here, and then there's also a guy called Xiao. Xiao was already a cult leader locally, and so they joined. It's like, oh, actually, we're a similar religion. And we're Feng, and then there's a guy called Wei. Wei is he was actually the richest of all of them. So most of them are actually poor peasants or coal miners or actually triad members, like gangsters. Wei actually owned some land, and so so they started building weapons, and they did it at his home. Yeah. So and then there's a guy called Shi. He is relatively learned. Again, also maybe like a landowner, like a small time landowner. And so now they're talking about, so if you have to kill all the Manchurians and you have to go to the heaven on earth, then the rebellion begins. And when it began, it began in Jintian, which means golden farmland. So it's around the Guangxi area. And when they started, this is one of those things. There was a flag that was on the floor, and then I think what happened was they built something like below, and they had a rope that tied to the flag, and then there was like, God is upon us to fight the evil ones, and then someone pulled from the back, and the flag started rising, and everyone was like, whoa. So
in some regards, it's a classic, the beginnings of a classic peasant revolt.
Peasant revolt,
but
wrapped around in a pseudo-Christian cult-like. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Their organizing principle was basically this cult-like pseudo-Christianity that they used to organize the peasants to revolt against the...
That's right. So you look at this. What's the relationship? So he's the second son of God. Yang is the speaker of God. Xiao is the son-in-law of God, because God also had other other sons and other daughters as well. So he's the son-in-law. He's the organizer. So you've got a bunch of just one big happy heavenly family, all at the top. And so they began and they started. And most people actually, most of the history that we know about them is a guy later called Li, the last name Li Xiucheng, because he wrote his confession. And then what he was saying is he actually joined. He was actually the second head guy later. He was he had no idea what happened. Everybody took up arms and said they're going to go to heaven, so he just went along. So there were a lot of people that actually you could say, and Chinese peasants, they if 100 years ago, I would never leave my home village ever. So once you leave your village, you have no idea how to go back. So everybody just kind of followed on, and then they took up arms and they started fighting. Yang was a military genius. In one of the first campaigns, Hong and Feng were trapped. He led an army to fight the Qing army, and then shifted away. And so the Qing army then was following the other small army. Then he used his best army to take both of them, to rescue both of them, and went back to their own place, their own station. So he was a natural. A natural genius in warfare. And also, at that point in time, the Qing Dynasty, the military is extremely corrupt. So most of the Qing army, they have two types of Qing army. One is the 8 banners, they're the Manchurians, and the others are the green flags. The green army are basically the Han Chinese, so main Chinese people who. This is about 200,000 men. This is about 500,000, and it's all from if your father was a green banner, then you would be. So it's but because China most of the time for 100 years there was no war, so they basically did other stuff because the amount of income wasn't enough. But so they would, for example, do other things, mostly opening underground casinos and that kind of stuff. So, but that absolutely no. They lost really badly to the British and then the British and the French in the Second Opium War, and they even lost to the peasants. And also another thing, and it's very interesting in mainly like imperial system, for the officials, basically it's as long as the rebellion doesn't happen in my place, it's fine. So when they would invade like a city or whatever, they would just try to get them to go away as soon as possible. And the way is like like for example, you surrender all your resources to them. And so all the peasant rebellions in Chinese history, none of them ever stayed in a place. Very rarely. They also always walked around. So for example, like the late Qing Dynasty, like there was a huge rebellion. They went all the way from Luoyang down to Guangzhou, down up back to like Sichuan. So they never keep land because they're basically bandits, right? So they would go to a place, rampage it, take all the stuff, and go to the next place and do exactly the same thing, kill the rich people. So they keep on going. They kept on going, and then they got their first town in Yong'an. That's when they built their country. So the country is called Taiping, peace. Tianguo. Tianguo literally means heaven country. Heaven country. So it's so the peaceful heaven country. Peaceful heaven.
What do you mean they built their own country?
As in they started calling themselves
I see.
the Taiping Tianguo.
I see.
Yeah, the Taiping heavenly empire. And then started having different titles, which is quite funny. And that is, he is the Tian Wang, which is so he's the heaven king. Yang, he's the top guy. He's the second guy, so he's the eastern king. Xiao is the western king. Feng is the southern king. And Wei is the northern king. Shi is the wing, so like wingman, like wingman king, wingman. Oh, that sounds like a Chinese name, wingman king. And so it's wing, so heaven, east, western, southern, and this order. Yes.
And that was they were then, so to speak, in charge of those territories in China, or
in that one city.
In that one
city, because they never kept the place. Like that, so they went from Jintian to Yong'an. We're still in Guangxi right now. We're still in Guangxi.
Yeah.
But they never kept anything from behind, so they keep on. It's the bandits, right? But that's and it's a cult because at that point in time, Hong already had 36 concubines. Only. But you think about it, the whole of the Qing Empire, the emperor was called Xianfeng. He had 18. Right? Qianlong, who had the most, he is supposed to be the most because he lived until 89, right? He had 56. But this guy with one town, 36. So, how do you define a cult? Like a guy, they talk about God, but they basically get money and women, right? So this is really just a classic cult.
Yeah.
And then they take bits and pieces from church. So what they, like from the Bible. So, for example, it's complete communism, where everything is shared. So whatever all your possessions, it goes to the heaven storage, and everybody gets redistributed how much what everybody gets a share, and then so they kept on fighting, they kept on winning, until they got to Hunan. Hunan is actually the guy who founded the army to destroy them. Zhang would be from Hunan, but when they went all the way, when they were on the way in, Hunan people are particularly strong-minded. Hunan, you can think about it, it's actually people from Hunan made Chinese history, the modern Chinese history. After Zhang, General Cho Chicken, it's also in this period. We'll talk about General Cho later. He's from Hunan. The guy who rebelled against the Qing Dynasty later with Sun Yat-sen, Huang Xing, also Hunanese. Mao was Hunanese. Liu Shaoqi, Liu was Hunanese. The founder of the People's Liberation Army, He Long, also Hunanese. So it's no coincidence. Taiping had hit like a roadblock in Hunan, and then the destroyer of the Taiping was from Hunan. It affects all of actually Republican Chinese history, all the way up till Mao. And we'll get into that later. But basically, during those wars, Xiao died, and Feng died. Got killed by the Qing army. But they kept on winning, they kept on winning. They went through Wuchang, and then in 1853, so about 2 years after, it started in 1851, by 1853, they took Nanjing. So they took their small, what they call the small heaven on earth. So everybody has huge incentive to fight there, because if you come with us, you'll get to small heaven, and after you die, you go to big heaven, which is the real.
So they actually captured Nanjing.
They captured Nanjing, but at that point in time, they captured Nanjing, Yangzhou, and Zhenjiang. So they actually had 3 towns. So it's about it. They went all the way from here up there, but then they didn't keep any of the areas. So at that point in time, they only had that much.
And what type of weaponry were they using? And
well, they.
I mean, did they develop it on their own? Were they stealing?
In the beginning, it's mainly just like like farming tools, right? You think about it, and then as they went along, they took resources. They started buying Western armory, so like cannons and guns and all that. So a lot of times they were actually, at least in the beginning part, they were pretty much maybe even more technologically advanced than the Qing army, because they actually spent it well onto while most of the 8 banners and the green and the green camps, they're called huge corruption, huge corruption, and so the money never really got to the actual weaponry, but they actually bought like cannons and guns, yeah.
Now I remember that
rivals, yeah.
Opium severely impacted China's army
Yep.
around this time, and I'm wondering because
Taiping was not allowed. They banned opium.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
They
could have been in much better condition
Yep.
because they weren't under the influence of drugs.
Of drugs, yeah. They weren't potheads, right? Yeah,
right.
Yeah, right. So, or worse than pot. So they took, and then they took Nanjing. They took Nanjing and took the 3 cities, and so what happened was that then they realized, oh dear, we only have 3 cities. So they then went backwards and started invading, because this is Yangtze River, right? Mm-hmm. And Yangtze River all flows to Nanjing. So if you want to keep Nanjing, you need to make sure that Wuhan, Anqing, these areas are yours as well, to protect yourself. So for example, the Romance of 3 Kingdoms, right? The last kingdom that was captured was actually in Nanjing as well. What they did was they sailed boats down the Yangtze River. So this is usually how you invade Nanjing. It's actually that's how the Mongolians did it as well. Was the last part as well. Also sailing down from the west and higher ground with boats. So it started fighting here. Yeah, and the war continued, and then rather than talk about fighting, we'll break and talk a little bit about the political system, or economic and political system. So basically, the first thing is extreme communism. So Hong had this idea that it's everybody eats the same stuff. Everybody has stuff to eat. Everybody has farmland to farm on, and everybody wears the same clothes. Yeah, and but it's if you think about it, but all the resources once you join all goes into the heavenly storage. So who had so then the top guys would have the biggest share. Another very interesting feature about the Taiping is that men and women were not allowed to be together, even the husband and wife. So that really helped in the beginning in terms of fighting, right? So most of these guys are Hakka, and Hakka women did not bind their feet because they worked. And so, but then in order to manage or to increase the efficiency of as a military machine, they intensely divided the men and the women. So men and women even your husband and wife were not allowed to be together. And actually, if there were women who were pregnant, they would open their stomachs alive and take the baby out. So actually, these are very gruesome people. There's the prisons in the Taiping were empty because the lowest grade of punishment is death penalty. And so you've got all kinds of horrible death penalties that either created by themselves or used from from other dynasties. For example, you heard the five horse The 5 horses tie your neck and your limbs to the 5 horses, and then they ride the horses away. And then there's also the death by 1,000 cuts. That's the standard stuff. And also one, it's called light the heavenly lamp, which is you wrap someone around cloth, and you start, and then you slowly burn that person to death. If you're lucky, they start from the head. If you're unlucky, they start from your toes. So very gruesome stuff. And then because of this, there's also a huge amount of homosexuality as well. Because the boys would join, and then they would basically be playthings for the generals. And then the women would then be selected by the top guys. So by the time they went to Nanjing, the wife number went from 36 to 88. And by the end, because they didn't have any eunuchs, and I'll get to that later, he had about 2,000-3,000 women serving him. And while like the basic people were not allowed to even see their wives. So it's really weird. Like, for example, even his son, Hong's son, in his memoir, or right before he was executed, said by the age 9 he was not allowed to see his mother or his sisters. So it's have this like really extreme divide, and like Yang nearly had to ask God to come to him to kill one of the generals who slept with his wife, and say how this is wrong. So very weird stuff. But Hong himself had a lot of women, and they would take. In some sense, it's easy to manage for them because usually birthdays and stuff they would go to the women's quarters and just pick up like 14 to 17-year-old girls for them to choose. And that, when Nanjing is extremely violent, it was the first Nanjing massacre. One of the they just went in and killed pretty much everybody, and took all the women and put them into the quarters. And they also could not manufacture eunuchs. They had 80 boys, castrated all of them. 77 of them died. 3 of them went limp, were paralyzed. And they realized, oh my God, we can't manufacture our own eunuchs.
Wait, why did that happen to the boys? Because usually at birth, don't they? Or they usually
they want to make them into eunuchs.
Right, but I mean, typically with a eunuch,
yep.
At birth you would castrate them, right?
No. But for example, the Ming Dynasty, the great Ming Dynasty eunuch who nearly ruled China, he castrated himself at 21. He had actually a son before. I can never imagine how you do it.